All right, thank you so much for staying right here with us. It's still Atn Saturday on Atlantic Television Network. We have our guests already seated in the studio. And with me in the studio as our guest on my right, on my left rather, is Chukwu C. Ikechukwu. He's a public affairs analyst. Good morning to you and welcome.
Thank you, good morning.
Great to have you.
Yeah, good to be here.
All right, we also have with us on my right, Dr. Godson Kelechi Wogu. He's also a public affairs analyst. Good morning to you. Welcome.
Yeah, good morning. It's a pleasure coming to be with you.
All right, welcome, Doctor. Let's go straight to it now. We're taking the story from Anambra State. We have reports that Upo community in Anambra State protested against the Enugu Electricity Distribution Company over a power outage lasting more than 6 years. The protesters demanded the return of transformers taken by the EEDC for refurbishment. Now, reinstatement of their connection to the 33 kVA industrial line and the provision of prepaid meters. The community accused the EEDC of deliberately blacklisting them, leading to the shutdown of small businesses, including a sachet water factory that employed 25 people. The EEDC's business district manager has promised to escalate their concerns to management, but declined further comments. Now, this can be really frustrating when there's a blackout in the community, especially when we have businesses in that community. It will affect businesses, affect livelihoods, and affect a lot of things. But I'd like to get your thoughts on this story, Kechukwu.
When you see stories like this, it borders on, there is a question of justice here also. Because, like, are you for real 6 years without electricity? Economies have been lost.
True.
Now, the people talk about their transformer taking. Why would it take 6 years to refurbish a transformer? 6 long years. Within that 6 years, there have been no electricity. Then the side of justice is that from their comment, no light for 6 years, but they will have been paying electricity bill. To what intent were the bills collected? A person was not rendered a service or a product bought, and you keep taxing the person, making them to pay, and just now they say, oh, we won't pay again. I mean, that does not sell anywhere. For 6 years in a system that is trying to create employment, jobs are being lost. This is just one. There are many other small businesses that would have been shut down completely, or the cost of production would have gone up. Remember those small barber's shop you have around there, ladies, and all these rely on electricity. They can't function properly again. So I think this type of stories, we keep hearing them again and again, but it's high time we have a system that says no to this. If there is no electricity, bill should not be paid. I mean, they shouldn't even be talking of prepaid meter where there is no electricity. Billing what? But it's an unjust system we have, and it is this unjust system that keeps fueling all manner of agitation and anger among the people, and at times even make the people question why they should be patriotic to a system that treats them unfairly. I can't imagine paying electricity bill for 6 years and there is no electricity. You had a transformer, your transformer was taking 5 transformers from the news, and for crying out loud, even if they are reinventing transformer, 6 years is enough to reinvent a transformer. But here you're not even buying anyone, it's to refurbish an old one. Why would it take so long? It really doesn't sit well with anybody.
All right, talking about this not being the first time we're hearing cases like this, it could be really frustrating, like I said earlier. Remember, we have been having various times where we've had increase in fuel price. So looking at communities like this, you wonder how they were able to cope. But let's get your thoughts, Doctor.
Yeah, I think it's a failure of the institution, and it's also failure on the side of the government, because they are aware of the situation. So the state government and all of those concerned in terms of providing electricity to people in the community. Yes, it is clear that EEDC, they are very much responsible, and for a community to have suffered this long shows that the management has failed in providing these utilities, essentials for the people. And just like my friend said, the economic system and the economy in particular has been crippled, and people will be left to source for other means of generating electricity for themselves, and it is high time for those concerns to properly come into finding out what led to this. Not just that the transformer is bad, because it doesn't take any much time to replace a faulty transformer. So it is a system failure, system collapse. So I think that the state government should call all of those concerned, those stakeholders in EEDC, to see how they can restore power, electricity to this community, because they've suffered so long in a modern society like ours. So it is not really good for people looking at the economic trend and inflicting more suffering and hardship on them.
All right.
So it's not really fair.
But you would agree that when we look at cases like this, it looks like the people do not have any say, or probably they don't have any power. But when we look at our constitution, we realize that the people have a lot of power. So why will something like this be going on? Is it a case of Nigerians not knowing who to meet or where to, channel their issues to? What exactly do you think is the problem? Do the people really know exactly how to handle issues like this? Or do the people even know how much power the constitution has placed in their hands?
Okay, it's one thing to theoretically have a power or power. It's another thing to practically have the wherewithal to exercise such power. Like Dr. Mogo has mentioned, institutional failure. There are institutions in place that ordinarily don't even need the citizens to rise up to demand for electricity before it's given to them. In civilized crime, these things should just come naturally.
True.
If there is a faulty transformer or any of the supply system, the company responsible, the agency, the government fix it without even people. We know in client where these things are fixed even with an apology. The people apologize for the inconvenience they have suffered.
It's not even out of place. I mean, they're paying for it.
Somebody talks about how since she relocated to Canada, the only time there was power outage was for 9 minutes. Yet before that power outage, they sent them a mail apologizing ahead of time that there will be a power outage, so time to fix so thing. The people are aware. This is where they see it as partnership. Another thing I think is that, you see, when you talk about the people, what they should do is what they have done, protesting to the system. But ideally, if an institution works, if our institutions work, if there is no system failure, like Dr. Nwogu said, we shouldn't get to the point where people protest. Maybe before this protest, maybe there have been letters written over and over and they ignore it, because I have seen such experience even here in the city. People write letters, and this brings me to the thought I've always had concerning services in Nigeria. Until we get to that system where we demonopolizes every service. You see, what we have now in electricity is still a very much of monopoly. A system where if I live in a particular area, I must patronize a particular company, does not work well. So that company can decide to serve me or not to serve me, especially in a system where they can be billing me, like the case of this Upuko community. For 6 years, they have not had electricity, but they have been paying bill, which means the company has not lost anything in terms of revenue or has not lost much. But if they lose revenue, I don't have electricity or any other service for 2 days. That 2 days or 1 day, I don't pay for it. The company looks at it, book, and knows that, we should have gotten so amount of money, but we didn't get it because of this thing. The next day, they will come and fix it so I can pay them. So until we have a system where you and I probably live in the same compound, but I have a different company supplying me electricity services, and you have a different company, and I am free to switch.
Yes.
We may not see an end.
People have always made reference to the telecommunication industry where...
Absolutely.
Yes, where
example, we can be sitting here and I'm using a different service provider, you are using a different one. So if I notice you always have network
and I don't,
I will switch. And because my service provider knows that I can easily switch, even though we still don't have the best of services, but at least you don't have a situation where you say, they have stayed for 6 years without
So that's a suggestion that a lot of Nigerians have made.
Yeah.
Do you see that being viable with the electricity sector in Nigeria?
Of course, it is going to be a workable system because if the monopoly is dislodged and other investors are involved into providing or distributing electricity to people, then there will be that competitiveness where each of these companies want to be efficient and effective in supplying electricity to its customers. But since it's a monopolized system, so all of this can happen. And to me, I think I see it to be a defranchising of the people because you cannot be taking or collecting tariff and all of that, and the services are not provided. It's a corruption on its own. And it's a system that is being encouraged, I think, only in Nigeria, because I've not, over time, I've gone through certain different countries with the electricity productions. I did the research on one of them, and I've been able to see that, yes, there's nowhere people are paying for what they are not consuming. It's only in this country that we find that the system allows that. And the government themselves are deaf or keeping deaf ears to such situations. It's not normal in a sane society that people do not have electricity and then you are charging them, collecting money from them.
One would wonder what they told these people that made them to keep paying for 6 years.
The reason is because it's a monopolized system, and they feel that if they do not pay, they could even go to take off the main lines from these communities. And that's the fear. So people want to compromise, to keep paying with the hope and intention that they will rescue them, they will help them as quickly as possible. But somebody, I think, or a group of persons have been eating and dining on this money. So like over time, it may not be reflecting in the organizational financial revenues and all that. But some certain group of people, that's why I'm concerned that there should be an investigation on this issue. Government, if the government is transparent, they should be able to call to order the management of this organization and see how they can uncover whatever hidden things that are happening, those corrupt activities, and those personnel should be sanctioned. Because it's really very, very, very sad that for 6 years people experience blackout and they are paying out of pain without enjoying whatever services they're supposed to enjoy.
All right, it's looking more like the ASU strike when the students will keep believing, okay, well, we might come back next month, let me not take a job yet, and then next month you find out that you're home at for 6 months.
Subjected to
exactly. That's probably the situation here.
Yeah. And funny thing is that these guys that you may say, oh, why are they paying? If they don't pay, from experience of the past, which I'm sure some of them would have heard, by the time these people are ready to bring back the transformer, they could still come back and say, oh, you have outstanding bills to pay.
Exactly.
If you don't pay it, we won't restore it.
No, it's what is common because it's happening in our society.
It's a case of injustice against the people.
It's injustice, really.
All right, we hope investigations will be carried out and more will be done concerning that story. As it unfolds, we'll definitely bring it to you. Let's go to the next story now. We have reports that Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency has warned Kebbi State, located in northwestern Nigeria, may soon face flooding due to the rising water levels of the River Niger. The alert follows reports of increased water flow from upstream activities in Niger and Mali. In a statement issued by NIHSA's Director General Maruk Mohammed, the agency pointed out the potential risk of flooding in Kebbi as water from the Niger Basin begins to flow into Nigeria. He stated that the situation, informed by data from the Niger Basin Authority in Niamey, Niger Republic, indicates that floodwaters from Niger and Mali are gradually making their way towards Nigeria. And he said the agency has already alerted dam operators of Kainji Dam and Jeba on the River Niger, ensuring that they are prepared for any potential increase in water flow. However, the NIHSA clarified that as of August 22, 2024, the dams have not yet started spilling water from their reservoirs. So they also urge states and communities along the River Niger system to remain vigilant, particularly from the end of August through September, when the risk of flooding is expected to be highest. This is a prior notice that have been given. I don't know how early you think this is. You think it's coming early? Do you think it's not coming early? What do you think about the story?
You call it a prior notice. For me, who are having seen the way things happen in Nigeria, I think it's not just a prior notice. It is to your tent, O Israel. Because, one would want to ask, why do we have bilateral agreements? This is a river system that involves some other countries. One would have thought that the government would have had proper arrangement with these countries, how to control this water and even have channels. This is like what happens when this, the Cameroonians and their dam, an arrangement that has been there for decades. The Nigerian government system fails to do her part. Whenever that river overflows, people in Nigeria suffer. Like, we are having a little discussion off studio. These things shows that our system is not working. And I bet you, in spite of this prior warning, as you would want to call it, this flood will come and meet the people. The people will suffer for it. Crops will be destroyed. Remember, a system where prices of food has hit all-time high in terms of inflation rate. When this happens again, with the crops that may likely be lost, that probably suggests that next year we will have to grapple with, poor harvest and food coming. We shouldn't be doing this to ourselves over and over again. The government can have a way of channeling this water. These waters can even be channeled for more productive use. I mean, they talk about Kenji Dam and all that. This is the same water you need to generate electricity and irrigation for farming. Kebbi State and some of the states in northern Nigeria, these are regions of the country that some periods of the year they lack water for their farming activity. These waters can be properly channeled, reserved, and be used for agriculture rather than serving as a source of disruption to people. So I think it is not enough to send this one in. Like I said, it's to your tent, O Israel. That is what it may just be at the end of the day, with government doing nothing. They should get to their, fold their sleeves and work. I mean, the government should fold their sleeves and work and ensure that the poor communities along these river edges don't suffer unduly, because it always leads to loss of economic, social life. I mean, even health risks is involved. So it's not enough to always warn the people. See, the place of government is not just to send out warning, it's to mitigate those actions from happening. So I think they can do more to ensure that at the end of the day, we don't have this flood disturbing people that are already traumatized by insecurities and other
increase in
issues.
prices of food products. Yes, let's hear you, Doctor.
Yeah, I think this is not the first time we'll keep hearing this kind of warnings. I look at the situation to be where people are not ready, or the government is not ready to own to its responsibility. Niger Republic, they have their dams and the water. In fact, whenever, just like now they're giving the warning, whenever there is an excess water, high level water, the impact will be felt by Nigeria. So why? It is a situation where the government fails to do what they are supposed to do. There is a need for them to build dams that will be used to collect these waters. As the water flows, they are channeled into a dam where it will be stored. The impact will be less in terms of inflicting sufferings and destructions on the farming, the farmers, and all of those economic activities. So there is need to build more dams. We've been hearing over time, just like my friend stated, the Cameroon scenario, where the overflow over there will receive the impact. Why is it not happening over there? It's because their systems have been properly arranged. controlled.
What is wrong with arranging and controlling our system? You know, this flooding of a thing, this is not the first time it's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
This is something that we experience in Nigeria over and over again. So one would wonder, currently we're experiencing flooding in different states in Nigeria.
Exactly,
in fact, we've already recorded deaths. People are already dying, and then we heard in one state where one of the Secretary for State actually said that the people should see it as their destiny. They should just pack their things and go to higher grounds.
They are helpless.
You understand? So one will ask,
it's to your tent or Israel.
yes, what is wrong with our system? Does it mean that after each administration, with different administrations, we still don't get it right?
Yes, they don't get it right because they know what to do. And the funds to do those infrastructural facilities and all of that are being embezzled. And no incoming administration coming into the system and seeing the reports, recommendations, and all of that that should be done. Most of them, they just abandon it. And the funds that are supposed to use in building those infrastructures are being embezzled.
So it's not a case of not having enough funds to handle
There is fund to do it. The question is this: the Niger themselves, are they experiencing the kind of flood we're experiencing in Nigeria? Cameroon, are they also experiencing it? No. So the fact is that the system we find ourselves are not really there for the public interest. They are not there to protect the citizens. They leave the citizens to their fate, that whatever they see, they just take it. Whereas in other countries in Africa, they try to protect their people. So now this information has come. Why telling the people what would they do when once the flood comes? Those of them who may be lucky, they can carry their clothing and they run away. That's what the government expects. They should just evacuate from wherever they are and let the flood have its way until it is over. So it is something that is disheartening that government is not playing their role.
You know, talking about letting the people evacuate the area and telling them to move to higher grounds, have we ever imagined, or has the government ever imagined that not everybody would have somewhere else to go
to?
Now, some people would have relatives in other states. Some people would have relatives in, some people would have the funds to even move. But some other people might not even have the funds to go anywhere with their families. Because I don't think anybody will get this kind of notice and keep their family. Any man will have this kind of notice and make his family to still be in that area. So how do you think we can come out of this situation from it repeating itself?
Earlier, Dr. Wangu used a word that covers everything: systemic failure. We have a system failure. That system failure has been on over the decades. These issues, some of us, studied and discussed it in school. We keep repeating itself. It's a system failure. Now, another thing, of course, aligned to the system failure is the corruption in the system. Like he said, it's not a matter of lack of fund, but we have a situation where people may even be making money out of these things, because one government, the best the government can do is set up an IDP, which is just a short-term measure, and those IDPs are usually not the best of place for people to stay in, because it comes with health risk. So many environmental risks, people staying out of school for as long as the flood lasts. But guess what? At the end of the day, a particular office or individuals will present a humongous budget that was used to set up the IDP. So they make money out of it. I mean, the guy who, like he said, there is fund, but what we lack is the political will. How many persons in Nigeria, if you have been following, for example, what happened, or if you follow, for example, what happened during the British last general election, the issues they discussed, and what is happening with the Democrats that just rounded off their national convention district. How many persons in Nigeria desires political office? Let me say the Kebbi State you are talking about. I want to be governor of Kebbi State, and I pick up documents or do research directly or indirectly, get people to say, okay, can I get a grasp of the issues on ground here, on how to solve it? We don't do that. You only get into office and everything appears surprising to you. Even the things the ordinary man in the street is aware of, the governors and the executives seem surprised that such is happening. Like you talked about the secretary to whichever state you said, saying to the people, oh, this is your destiny. Come on, what are you talking about? The world we live in today has developed beyond people being held back by natural forces. Yeah, natural forces are there, but society has developed in such a way that we have been able to tame the forces of nature. But it's not the case in Nigeria. So they always prefer every year there's a budget for IDP, and with the new that has come into place some years ago, Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. I'm sure all the states are quick to replicate that, because it gives an opportunity to call some boys to come and eat. We run a come and chop system, and that seems to give them more leeway than creating, like he said, a dam that collects this water. And like I noted earlier, a collection of this water could serve for economic purpose later on. It could be used for irrigation when the waters are no longer there, as is always the case in northern Nigeria. But we have a set of people who don't think. We have a system problem. That is just the word for it. And until we solve that issue, we will keep seeing this.
Is it really about a set of people who do not think? I mean, let's look at it. Different administrations. Does it mean we have never had someone who has come in to really have the people in mind? Or is there another problem that we're not pointing at?
I feel the same kind of people that have been coming in. You see, the thing about changing government is not just about changing the persons. Is these same people, they have the same fraternal spirit, as it were. They are the same people who has never really meant well, or who has never been able to think out of the box, until we have a system that encourages those who think of how to solve this problem coming into power, and not people who assume power because it is the turn of my region. And that region could be at the state, even at the local government level, begin to say, oh, this ward has produced the chairman, our ward has not produced, oh, our local government is divided. So until we change that system to start asking people, what are you bringing to the table, as it were.
So our system doesn't allow for good leaders to come in, that's what you're saying?
The point here is that we've not gotten a system that is so devoted to public interest.
Absolutely.
We've not. All we are seeing is politicians who come into power for their own interests or their group interests. If we have a government or administration that is public-oriented, most of these disasters or floodings will be taken care of. Let's imagine those civilized or advanced countries. Over time, we hear there are floodings, like in the US. Yes, there are floodings. And the kind of intense climate conditions they have, or the weather conditions they have, they are very, very furious. If Nigeria should have it, I think everybody would die. Imagine when the hurricane and all of those tornadoes and all that. But in America and these European countries, they're able to manage the situation. After even the flood, once it comes, within some hours or days, you see the whole water will be channeled. They go back. But over here in this country, when one such happens, just like what happened a few years back, both Bayelsa and so many other countries were all submerged because of the Cameroon water. And over time, past governments have ignored the warning that dams should be erected. They ignored it. I wonder the last experience, I was thinking that maybe the incoming administration will have to take a drastic step in building this infrastructure for the good of the people. But it's ignored. Nobody. It is only when the warnings or the signals are coming that you see the government keep raising alarm, shouting. For what? it doesn't make any sense.
All right, I wonder what will happen in KB State if everybody vacates the state.
That's the problem.
But then let's look at this story on corruption and the EFCC. This is talking about Nigeria's system allowing fraud to flourish. Like our guests were already talking about the system and the kind of leaders that it produces. The chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, that's EFCC, Mr. Ola Olukoyede, has emphasized the need for transparency and accountability amongst public office holders, highlighting that the problem in Nigeria is a system that allows fraud to thrive, rather than the people themselves. He makes his remarks during a visit by the Niger Delta Development Commission Managing Director Dr. Samuel Buku and his delegation to the EFCC headquarters in Abuja. Olukoyede praised the NDDC's Rewind to Rebirth initiative, expressing optimism about the Commission's commitment to change and its potential to become a symbol of pride and integrity. Ensured continued collaboration between the EFCC and the NDDC, especially in strengthening systems and processes, and reiterated the EFCC's commitment to fighting corruption. Dr. Obuku thanked the EFCC for its role in financial recoveries that have aided the NDDC's project to the Niger Delta region. He advocated for enhanced collaboration and technical support from the EFCC, particularly in training NDDC staff in financial management and corporate governance. Okay, the EFCC and the NDDC, let's get your thoughts on the story.
Another jamboree, courtesy visits. There are too many courtesy visits that happen in Nigeria that leaves one wondering, are they really necessary? Does the NDDC, now on face value, there is nothing wrong with paying courtesy visit, but do they really need to visit the EFCC for EFCC to do what they should do, or to thank them for recovering funds? Ab initio, the FCC was set up to fight corruption and get things right. So it's not. I don't see these things as fantastic way to go. The good thing is, like he said, what we have been saying here is that we have a system problem, and I think everybody should just get his hand on the deck. Let's solve this system problem. So these issues of recovering funds, by the time you recover the fund, development has been delayed somewhere. Yeah, it's good, fund has been recovered, but it's a cold comfort. And beyond the talk, what is the measures being put in place to ensure that new funds or even the recovered one does not take flight again, only for another set to recover it? Let's stop this circle of recovering funds and get to work. The Niger Delta is a region that is in their need of development. The essence of setting up the NDDC in the ab initio was to encourage development, but over 2 decades of setting up that board, development has not come as the people want to expect. Yeah, probably they have scored some point here and there, but more needs to be done. So the issue of corruption and transparency is something that should be tackled beyond theory, beyond this visit. There should be a commitment to get it done.
All right, is it looking like we are beginning to blame a lot of our, should I say irresponsibilities or things that we do not do on system failure?
Yeah, if we say in this story about the visits of the EFCC chairman to NDDC, let's look at the NDDC as it is. We know that this body was set up for a good purpose in terms of developing the Niger Delta region. But we find out that there is lack of transparency in terms of issuing or awarding of contracts and all that. And for you to get a job or a contract from the NDDC, you will have to be, it's either the top management have hired you or mobilize you to carry out that job on their behalf.
Is that not just an assumption?
Well, I can say, because I've come in contact with some of these contractors, there are some terms of loyalty, terms of compromise that you have to reach for you to be awarded a job, a contract.
But some people feel like it's just some Nigerians who tried to get the contract and didn't, that came together and said, concluded and said, for them to get contracts.
No, it's not that. It's not that, because for you
to know who.
For you to get such contract, because that's the area I'm trying to bring up about the corruption. The system is corrupt. Even to be awarded a contract, currently contracts are being awarded secretly. It's not unlike before. You find people who go to tender for jobs and all that. It's not like that now. So if a job is given to a company and the company fails to carry out the job, because that's part of what they are looking at, fund recovery, that you are giving money and you didn't execute the job and all of that. So they want to recover some of the money. But the fact is that there are terms and conditions that followed the award of these contracts and even the payments that are given. So when a new administration comes in, they will now begin to investigate those jobs that have not been completed. That's where the recovery comes in. So by the time they investigate and they find out that so company could not execute the job, and then they say, okay, refund whatever money you've collected and all of that. So there is no need for all this. For you to give a job to a company, make it open, a public thing. Make it transparent so that there will be different bidders. And at the end of it all, you compare the biddings of all these companies. And then the management will transparently also look at, okay, this company bidded this, that, okay, out from their own office, they've make the final selection that this company, this is this. And there are milestones for each jobs that you have to do so job to this point, then so amount of money will be given to you, not just taking all the lump sum of when the job is not executed and then you give the person the money. What do you expect? He will abscond with the money. So if the right things are done, there will not be need for fund recovery, because it's a waste of time. Time and resources are wasting. So I'm looking at a situation where the NDDC, both the government, they should look at how they can change this corrupt system in terms of changing or bringing policies that will be more transparent in bidding, in awarding of contracts, so that we will not be hearing that funds are recovered. Because there is a working system does not have such. You can't find such that you are recovering for a fund that has been assigned for a particular project and you are going to recover it. It sounds strange because it's not the way or the normal practice and not the normal system. So the corruption in our government, in our system entirely, needs to be checkmate by changing the policies, as well as properly, putting eyes on this management, so-called management of this board and all of those people who are there, because what they are there doing is you give me 10%, 20%, 50%, and all of those percentage in terms of projects, all of that should stop. They should do all they can do to stop it, so that we will not waste our time in recovering funds that are meant for developmental purposes.
All those allegations should be looked into, investigations should be carried out.
Exactly.
You also talked in same light where you talked about the NDDC, what it's meant for, the reason it was created, and then looking at the journey of the NDDC from its inception till now. And then you mentioned some corrupt practices going on, just like the doctor has also mentioned. But does it mean that there haven't been any positive impact from the NDDC, the Niger Delta. How do you see the impact of the NDDC in the Niger Delta? There was actually a time when some people were asking for the scrap of the NDDC during the forensic audit period, the off-the-mic period, and all of those things that happened that period. A lot of the stories we've been hearing from the NDDC have been stories of corruption here, corruption there. Does it mean that the NDDC have not impacted the Niger Delta in any positive light?
Like I said earlier, they may have scored some points here and there, but how much of those points has been able to take us out of the woods? The reason for the creation of the body was not to score some isolated points in the developmental metrics, but to ensure that we get out of the woods in the Niger Delta. If you have ever visited the rural areas of the Niger Delta, you still know that many communities in the Niger Delta are backward. They still grapple a lot, you know.
Some basic things.
Yes, and at times it's so bad that some communities don't even have something basic as toilets and good drinking water. I mean, here in the city, we may not have, you know, this pipe-borne water, but at least you can make do with alternatives, buying of pure water and bottled water and the rest of them. Some of these communities don't have that luxury of buying water, both for economic reasons and how the waters get to them. There are communities that are isolated from everybody. The only means of getting there is water transport. And when you say water transport, you are not talking about one standardized ferry. No, it's a system that if you're on a journey, you practically have your heart in your hand as long as the journey lasts, because basics like life jackets, they don't have it. So you can see how it's a daily confrontation with death, the systems you have there. So yeah, the Niger Delta Commission may have done well. I won't be of the opinion that it should be completely scrapped, but it should be strengthened. But why we talk about that to scrap or not, we also have in mind that some of these agencies, the reasons they were set up is just one thing, a testament that we had a failed system. If not for our failed system, some of these interventionist agencies wouldn't have been there, because we have a whole lot of ministries that carry out the things these agencies do. If you talk of provision of water, there is a Ministry of Water Resources. If you talk of, there is a Ministry of Transportation,
yes,
there is a Ministry of, you know, Works and Housing. But because these agencies or ministries has not done what they should do, interventionist agencies like the NDDCs were set up, but unfortunately they have not been able to answer all the questions. Nobody is deceived that these developmental questions can be answered in one fell swoop, but there is need to see a commitment to answering those questions beyond the rhetoric of, you know, every year you present a score sheet of wonderful projects done, but in reality the communities where these projects have been done really know what you're talking about. Doesn't really help. So scrapping the NDDC, I would say no, but there is a need for institutional strengthening in Nigeria. Whatever agencies you have set up, they ought to be strengthened, and maybe collaboration with the government, so we won't have a repetition of projects like we have had in the past, because this repetition of projects also gives rise to corruption at the level. If I get a contract to produce this table, and you also get a contract to produce the same table, and what we need here is just one table, at the end of the day, it's one of the two of us that will produce the table. What happens to the other person that got funding for the table? Your guess is as good as mine. That money goes. But if there is collaboration, you know that okay, within this fiscal year, these are the areas we are focusing on. The state government or local government can say, okay, since you're focusing on this area, let's take our attention to somewhere. So if you're going to do road A, fantastic, let me channel my energy on road B. We can't have a situation where you have awarded contract for road A, I have awarded contract for road A,
right,
he has awarded contract for road A. At the end of the day, road A is just one road. So there is a need for strengthening of our institutions, and the more talked about transparency shouldn't just be a rhetoric. We should see it working. Like doctor said, you know, in awarding of contract, the bidding process, there is an art, a procurement art. It should be followed. People should see that, okay, you know, why some of these accusations of, oh, I didn't get the job because I don't know anybody, why they gain prominence is because the system is not transparent. If there is a transparent system that says this is what you need to meet to get this job, this is what you need, at the end of the day, a number of us be dead. This guy's got it, and it's clear that what criteria you are used to give him that job. I look at it and I didn't meet this criteria, or maybe I met them but he had a better standing than me. Some of these accusations will not be there, and even when they come, the people can easily see it for themselves, that because the spreadsheet is there for everybody to see. But when the documents are secret, kept in house, and you're talking about transparency, it doesn't work.
All
Then
right.
it gives room for all manner of
Corruption.
shenanigans.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you so much. At this point, we'll take some time off, and when we return, the conversation will continue. We have other interesting theories for you. Please stay with us. All right, good to know you're still with us. Let's delve straight to the next story, to Nigeria's judiciary. Well, Justice Kudirat Kekereokun, the newly sworn-in acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, has pledged to enhance public trust in the judicial system, emphasizing that this task requires the collective effort of all Nigerians. During a swearing-in ceremony at the State House in Abuja, she vowed to reform the process for appointing judicial officers and promised a more reputable judiciary by the end of her tenure. Kekereokun, who was recommended by the National Judicial Council to replace the retiring Justice Olukayode Rula, stressed the importance of cooperation to improve the judiciary's reputation. She is set to serve as acting CJN until her confirmation by the Senate, with her tenure expected to last until 2028. The ceremony was attended by key government officials, including President Bola Tinubu, Senate President Godswill Akpabio, and other notable dignitaries. Yes, Secretary, let's hear you on the story.
No doubt the Nigerian judicial system is in their need of reform, like she has rightly said. No doubt. You see, we can't overemphasize the system problem we have here again. That word that was just used by the doctor today has come up again.
And it might come up in all the stories.
Absolutely, absolutely. It may definitely come up, but that is just the truth of where we are. There is a need for a system change. Unfortunately for us, the judiciary, which is usually a conservative body, has also been caught up in this mess and the need to reform the justice system. Yeah, on that she's very right. There is a need to reform. But the challenge is this. The person talking about the reform and building trust also came with a baggage of trust deficit. She was among the judges or the panel of justices that ruled in the Imo State governorship case with Emeka Ihedioha and the incumbent governor. And that magical ruling saw somebody that came forth in the election being pronounced as the governor of Imo State, which till today many Nigerians, especially those from Imo State, still wonder how that magic was done, what mathematical formula was used to achieve that. But beyond that, within that period, it was reported that there was a retreat for judicial officers of international caliber that was to take place in the USA. She, amongst others, were denied visa entry into the USA, while their aides got the visa. The principals that the event was made for didn't get this thing. So in appointing a judge, the number one judicial officer for the country, I think the system should consider not necessarily that we must align to foreign powers or what the international community did, but the truth is Nigeria is a part of the international community, and we cannot always neglect key questions being raised, especially when we always run back hand in hand to them for financial aid and other form of aid. So a person that came with that baggage of trust, what did the system to do to ensure that denial was an error, or it was just treated as if it doesn't matter? They can do what they like in the global community. We can do what we like locally. With such a person, trust building would be difficult. And like they would always say, it is not enough to carry out justice, to do justice. Justice must have been seen to be done. The people for whom we dispense justice, yes, the courts are not a court of public opinion, but the laws can reasonably, or the outcome of a judicial process can reasonably be predicted by keen followers of the judicial system, especially well-learned barristers and lawyers in the legal system. A case where people's expectation always, now when I say people, I'm referring to those that are professionals in the field, always differ from the outcome of every or most judicial system, raises more questions than answer. So yes, there is a reform, but how will she handle that baggage of distrust she came into the office?
Should that really matter? Do you think Nigerians have the same thoughts? Let's get your own thoughts.
Yeah, the issue of trust on the judiciary is something that is becoming so scarce. Looking at the points and facts he has appointed, referring to the new Chief Justice of the Federation, having such kind of skeletons in a cupboard, and what impact will she make? What effort will she make to bring about public trust? Because currently, a lot of people that have were seeing the judiciary as their last hope have lost hope because of the conflicting, interfering, and different versions of judgments that judges keep giving. So you'll be wondering, say, what is it? A judge in a court will give a judgment, another court will give a counter judgment on the same issue. So it shows lack of sincerity, integrity from the judiciary. So if she's saying that she wants to build back or rebuild public trust, it's not something by saying it with the mouth.
That brings to my question.
Yes.
What do you think the judiciary needs? What do we need in that system?
What they need to do is that judiciary need to come together again and re-examine their flaws, because corruption in the judiciary has caused the system to collapse, because the judiciary, we've lost hope on them. From all of those politicians that are lobbying them, that are, giving them money. The question is this: we have three arms of government: the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. We have seen that the politicians have over-influenced the judiciary, that it is the highest payer that gets the favorable judgment.
So how do you get the disconnection? Because you said there should be a disconnection.
Yes, there should be a disconnection. Disconnection should be that the CJN should, in fact, endeavor to checkmate every judgment before it is pronounced on similar issues, should give a stern warning to the judges that on any case that a court has made a pronouncement, a judgment, a sentence, no other judges should counter it. They should rather appeal it, not the same high court giving counter judgments on the same issue. So the CJN should start from that aspect, that any court that the judge has made a pronouncement of any judgment or anything, no other similar court should treat that matter. Rather, those who feel that they are not satisfied should appeal the case. That is the second thing they have to do. Then the judges, the CJN should also let these judges from any commingling with the politicians, because they're a separate arm of government. They should not be influenced. They should be, they should take their stands. They should take their stand.
Well, how would she even get to check for that?
She can, because
to make sure that they are not mingling with politicians.
Let me tell you,
these things are usually done at the back door. It's not done in the open for people to see.
We know that. But there is a level she can get to it. It will begin to bring that awareness to the judges to start refraining or restraining themselves from this excessive commingling with the politicians, because that is what is influencing them. They have lost their potency. They have lost the public trust. So with these conflicting judgments, the public are afraid of them. So she that has come up, I know she has bad records, but she can on herself start, you know, sanitizing herself. She should publicly apologize. I have to say this. For assuming this position, she should publicly apologize for her own errors. Of course, because my friend has cited it, it is there in the public domain. So she has to make a public apology to that effect.
All right.
So that people will start having trust in her. And then she should make stringent efforts to detach the judges from the influence of the politician.
Another thing that they should actually look at, let's look at other issues with the judiciary that should actually be handled that you probably have noticed being in Nigeria.
Okay, you know, one of the things, while you talked about the commingling, one of the things that comes to mind and has been a source of worry is the number of spouses of politicians that has risen to the judicial to become justices.
How do you stop such mingling?
Yeah, there may be no framework as it were, maybe to stop them, because since they have the career progress to make. But we should also be sure that these elevations are not a result of political influence. That, oh, this is my wife, this is my husband, make him judge. Because, like, at the end of the last parliamentary session, we saw a senator who lost the election. Who lost his seat in the final session, lamenting and talking about how his wife is a judge, you know, how he has helped some of them to win cases in court. So with that, I mean, so if my spouse is a judge and he has to appear before my spouse, and ideally, given that the case involves me, ideally you should expect my spouse to retire herself from that particular case and say, oh, because like I said earlier, it is not just about justice being done, it's justice must be seen to have been done. So even if that person gives a fair judgment, the fact that there is a relationship between us would always raise that question. Imagine a situation where in a football match between Nigeria and England, the referee is from England or from Nigeria. How would you convince the other side that they won fairly? I mean, if I'm the referee in a Nigerian match, there would always be that emotional attachment to the Nigerian team. So these are the things we should. There are a whole lot of things to look into.
Yes.
Like you said, the process of promoting judges should be. There have been a lot of accusations that, oh, you can hardly climb to this position if you know nobody. These are things that should be properly looked into. Then also, how do people become judges in the first place? What is their history? What is their integrity profile? You know, he talked about refraining, intermingling with politicians. Yes, your question is how we should do that. The question is, how do we unravel secrets in society? There is something called investigation. She may not get it 100%, but if she has the political will, she will go a long way in stopping that. You know, if we have sanctions, like the scriptures says, you know, a sin continues if the punishment is delayed. So if people are punished or sanctioned for so thing, people will refrain. Those that want to throw that part will know that, oh, if I'm caught, I'll be dealt with. And they will calculate their chances of being caught or not being caught. If the chances of being caught is higher, then they will rather advise themselves. But if it is an anyhow thing, however it goes, people will be free. Of course, in spite of the secrecy involved, we have seen pictures, you know, people revealing that, oh, so judges met with so person. We have seen some viral videos of judges and politicians, you know, together. That shouldn't be this way.
Okay, so let's look at the petroleum industry now. 650,000 barrels per day. That's, we have reports that Dangote Refinery is undergoing test runs for premium motor spirit or petrol production, with full operation expected by mid-September. This was revealed by newsmen, quoting a note by industry Monitor, that's the IIR Energy. The $20 billion refinery built by Aliko Dangote, which has so far only produced diesel and other distillate fuels, had earlier said that petrol deliveries from the refinery will start in July. Before that, the refinery had aimed to start making the motor fuel by May. And once fully operational, the refinery is set to open the Europe to Africa fuel trade and reduce Nigeria's reliance on imported refined product. Earlier in the month, the federal government's committee, which was set up to ensure the implementation of crude oil sales to local refineries in Naira, had reached an agreement with Dangote Petroleum Refinery for the rollout of petrol in September this year. The report stated that the federal government also disclosed that the sale of crude oil to Dangote Refinery and other local refineries will also commence in October 1, 2024. Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, has announced this during a meeting with the Implementation Committee in Abuja. All right, so how do you see this story, Doctor?
To me, I'm saddened by the prolonging of this commencement of production of petrol from Dangote Refinery. We know that the refinery had started producing diesel and all that, just like we said. But why is it taking it so long? Why is the government delaying to supply the crude oil, to sell the crude oil to Dangote Refinery? That's where my problem is, because we have a refinery in the country. In fact, it's the 7th largest refinery in the world. And it has not started producing petrol to the citizens of this country. So I don't see any reason for the delay. Why stipulating September, mid-September, 1st October? It is really funny. It is very, very sad. It shows that there is no political will of the government.
You don't see any limitations?
Yes, there is no limitation whatsoever.
The refiner, the crude oil.
There's no limitation. We're not supplying it outside the country. From where the refinery is located, and at Lagos, we have pipelines. We have, in fact, there is no reason to say that the supplying of the crude oil should delay. No reason, to my own opinion. I've worked in the oil field before, and I've seen it to be a kind of internal hindrances and all of that, because the impact of Dangote Refinery, once it comes to full stream, is going to ameliorate most of these petrol issues. But because I think those individuals, both the stakeholders, the government, they are still fancying importing petrol into the country. They want to still import petrol and then inflict more sufferings on the people based on the high prices of the petrol. Because if Dangote Refinery comes to full stream, it's going to reduce the prices of petrol. So why are they wasting the time?
If we have a stake with Dangote Refinery, then why would anybody want to, should I say, frustrate the efforts of the refinery in order for certain individuals to benefit?
Yes, they are frustrating it, to my own opinion, because they want to keep importing the petrol. Do you know that if Dangote Refinery begins operation in terms of petrol production, there is no need for importation? It's going to close that market.
You think that refinery would feed the whole
it's going to
Nigeria?
feed West Africa, not Nigeria. The capacity of Dangote Refinery is to fuel West Africa. Nigeria cannot be able to consume all that Dangote will produce. So it's going to circulate to West African countries. And I don't know why the system is not encouraging our own, even if it's a privately owned refinery. Do you know what it is? As a country, we don't have any refinery that is working.
Even though we're paying staff in those refineries.
The full staffs are being paid. The staff are paid. And the refineries are dormant.
That's something that should really be explained to Nigerians.
They have not come up to tell us, because we keep hearing it's going to work next month.
Yes,
it's going to work
but
this
then
week.
We have people working so
there.
What are they doing exactly? And they are being paid.
It is waste of our resources, financial resources. You see that thing they call turnaround maintenance, that billions and millions and all of that is being put in there. All of those money are being...
Maybe we should get it clear. Is it a case of us not producing at all, or is it a case of the refineries not meeting the capacity?
There is no production in any of those refineries. I have worked in one of the refineries. Since I left, that refinery is still dead.
All right, let's bring Kechuko into the conversation now with this particular story on Dangote refinery.
Let me start with this analogy. I am hungry and in their need of food, and you are in the kitchen making food to feed me. Initially, the aroma from the kitchen could serve as a temporary relief, because it gives hope that food will be ready in few minutes. But if minutes lingers into hours, hours lingers into a day, the aroma will no longer be funny or appealing to me. I'll begin to wait and look for how to get food. At some time, one begin to wonder, this refinery, by the way, that was hurriedly commissioned before it was even completed, was it built to change the goalpost or to produce petroleum product for Nigeria? Now the due date is September, but before now, even from last year, we have always had a date. The fun thing about this,
what do you mean by changing the goalpost?
Changing the date of when production will kick off.
Okay.
Yeah. And the funny thing about this is that, though a private entity, it is the government that is always announcing the new date for its commencement of production.
Not the company.
Not the company. Do you get it? And this new date, all those that spoke are also from the government side, Minister of Finance. When did the government become the spokesperson of
the private
entity? It raises a small question than answer. Then he talked about, doctor talked about those that import fuel, and asked the question. This thing is simple. It shows how powerful those vested interests against Nigeria is. Because these are not mere individuals, they are not mere businessmen. If it is mere businessmen, the state is strong enough to confront any opposition and crush it. We have seen it happen before. But when those oppositions are exactly not opposition, but they are those within the corridors of power in government, then you now understand why there is lack of will to confront. I mean, last time, just during the protest, the government announced that, I think that was the president in his speech that actually said nothing. Said they have ordered for products to be released. The question that came to my mind is that, do you need the president to give an
order before it will?
You say, and you know what? Days after, Dangote Refinery released a document to say, we thank you for this thing, but we have not seen
the
one
product.
Yes. Until date, nobody from government has refuted
that
to say, we have. So it's again been played. Initially, I would have thought those in government would be interested in having such a humongous project succeed in Nigeria, but it appears that's the contrary, because beyond the fuel we benefit, that company will create employment in a country system that is in their need of employment. We create subsidiary industries around it, those that will supply various things to it, the economic growth. Then this company and all the subsidiaries around it will pay tax to the government. That means the government will get more money. And then the issue of looking for dollars to buy products, would reduce. If the only dollar we save is the one we use to import fuel, that would go a long way in stabilizing
the economy.
Exactly. These are the things the government would have been interested to make this work. But it does appear that the government
reverse is
the case. Yes, they are not interested in all this. So the question that is begging for answer: what is government interest in not having this refinery work? Why is government the spokesperson fixing dates for the refinery? You know, he talked about the government refineries that has not worked. That's an indictment on the system. You talked about that the workers are being paid. Let me make a correction. Those workers are not just being paid; they are paid handsomely, more than most people that put in their life in work. But this is a company these are companies that produce nothing, and the workers are handsomely paid. Talk about wonders of the world. You find it in Nigeria. For crying out loud, if the only thing government will gain from Dangote refinery is the tax they will get from it, is enough to make it work. But here we are not talking of tax. Government will get tax. The queues in the filling station will likely disappear. Government is a huge economic benefit for the system. Petroleum will be exported, and government will earn foreign exchange.
So, you know, when Dangote was talking about what he's facing, frustrations and all, mentioned the NNPCL. And then if you feel like the government in a way is not supporting as they should, then why do you think they would have a stake in a company and would not want to support the functionality of that company?
The more you look, the less you see. That the stake, like the Dangote people came out to say, we were given a particular figure that this is the stake we have. But when the Dangote people spoke, which was after a long silence anyway, I think at the height of his frustration, he had to speak. We discovered that the stake they even said they have is far lower than that.
They also got to explain.
They got to explain. Yes. But of course, don't forget that stake is from government coffers.
Yes.
But whatever benefit that is accrued from having Dangote not work goes to private pocket, even if it is the pocket of those in government. So they may value that which goes to private pocket than that which comes to the public.
Okay, let's hear from you, Doctor.
Yeah, I think my friend have just said some good points. The government will benefit from the refinery, and not that alone, the public also will benefit in terms of having the availability of the product at rich and at a fair price. But the scenario where we find ourselves is that the cabals in government and the call them other petroleum marketers who may not own a refinery. They also, I see that they are also fighting against the workability of the Dangote refinery, because it will now make the importation of petrol to be at a very low or minimal level, and the fortunes they expect to be getting may not be commensurate to what they desire, and that is based on their own individual interests. But I fault the government in the sense that they are not willing to take expedite actions that will alleviate the suffering of the masses in terms of purchasing of petroleum products. So if the government have that political will, it will not take them few days, more than a week, to start pumping crude oil to Dangote refinery. Not all these prolonged plans that will not work, because you will be surprised that when it gets to that day, they will have one or two reasons they will give, not coming from the company, but coming from the side of the government. Just as he said, they have become the spokespersons of the refinery. Meanwhile, the Dangote himself is saying he hasn't seen any petrol. So how long will it take to supply him? Let me tell you that before the refinery was completed, they have made the feasibility studies of how the crude oil will be channeled to the refinery during the last regime. Everything was put in place, and the connections were made. As I speak to you, the connections are there. It's just to on the valve. That is all.
So why wait till October 1?
You know, just like you were seeing the social media, that October 1 will be a new dimension of the protest. So it's a calculative attempt where now it is on that day that the so-called refinery will start functioning. So I think there is something fishy, there is something wrong.
All right, we will definitely follow up the story because this is a very interesting one, especially the aspect of our refineries not being functional till now, and then the dates being moved and moved and moved again. Now we're looking at December before the end of 2024, and we hope that this time it will not be. You know, when Mele Akari was called and questioned, and when he stated that the refinery, Port Harcourt refinery to be precise, will be functional by the beginning of August, and then reports had it that what's going on, it's over
it won't work.
We're at the end of August already, and the people were asking, are the people in the refinery, are they aware that they will begin to function by the beginning of August? But then we had some excuses for them saying that, oh, even though it's still Mele Kyari, this is a new administration.
Okay.
So let's hope that it will be different. But then here we are, and it's still the same story. So we will definitely follow up with that story.
You know, the things that the average Nigerian has been raised to hope against hope. So
even at that, if other refineries are not functioning, how about the one that is functioning, ready? Why not give the product? Why wasting the time? Why prolonging the time? So the system is totally so bad.
Oh, the access to our refineries that are not working, are they getting crude?
They cannot get crude, not that they don't have crude. If you go to the tank farm, most of those tanks are filled with crude oil.
Well, sorry, there's a particular document, I can't be sure now, a statement that shows that those refineries, talking of the government refineries, even though they have not been working, but they get crude allocations.
Yes,
which raises the questions that where does those crudes go to? Probably shows that there are many undercurrent things happening
there
that we don't know. That means you allocate crude to a refinery that is not working, and then the crude disappears. Where does that crude?
You know, let me say this. To that effect, they had some time ago, they were able to produce what we call naphtha. Some of those crudes that are sent. So the units for naphtha were working, and they were producing naphtha, and exporting. But the petrol section wasn't working. So there is something fishy.
There's a lot discovery that you get when you talk about what's going on in Nigeria. But let's look at the next story now. This story is talking about Festus Osifo, the president of Pegasin, attributed persistent fuel queues in Nigeria to a weak and outdated distribution chain in the oil and gas sector. He called for urgent reforms to address the issue. In his words, there is no country in the world as big as Nigeria with our population that relies on a single point of product importation and uses trucks to distribute across the country. Now, Osifo also addressed other critical issues facing the oil and gas industry, where he noted that the high cost of production in Nigeria, which is 15 to 20% higher than in other parts of the world, is partly due to the burden of security on oil and gas companies. And he called on the government to take over security responsibilities from investors, which would significantly reduce production costs. Osifo further urged the government to strengthen laws and sanctions against those involved in oil theft, which he advocated for harsher penalties to deter bad behavior and encourage integrity within the industry. He said our distribution chain has challenges, that the distribution chain is weak in the downstream sector of the oil and gas industry. So that is why today we see queues in most of the stations. The problem may be solved today, but tomorrow it will surface, because there is no country in the world that is as big as Nigeria that has the same population nation as we have in Nigeria that brings its product to a particular area and uses trucks that take it around. Distribution problem have been cited as the major cause of the fuel queues that we have currently in Nigeria. And that also links us to the topic that we were discussing before we moved to this one now.
Yeah, you see, some time ago, somebody asked me, must you hold government responsible for everything? My answer is yes. And the simple reason is this. You know, there is this the theory of state, one of the theories of state, and the story of the Leviathan is this. We all surrendered our power to that giant that regulates society. That means that I don't take issues into my hand, because if left to me, how I handle a slap from A may be different from how I handle a slap from B, and will also be different from how C handles the same slap. A slap from A may mean my getting a cutlass to chop off his head. The same slap is given to C and he goes away with it. But if we hand our power over to this humongous entity, the Leviathan, this Leviathan decide collectively on our behalf that say, okay, for every slap you get so treatment. So nobody gets his head chopped up for a slap and the other person gets a warning. One wonders, security is a critical issue. Why do you leave security to the companies to provide? I mean, there's a level of security they take care of themselves, but there is security for critical assets, which are national assets that shouldn't be handled by the government. This supply chain he's talking about, the government can put regulation, put infrastructures. The railways that we are coming on board, I don't know if they are still coming on board, if it has become like Nigerian democracy that has remained nascent over the years rather than growing. You know, the thing is this: government can improve on the supply chain system while not necessarily paying for it, but regulating it and giving control. So, like he said, distribution will become easier, because this is at times, this is what you hear even the NNPC or by their new baptism name now saying, oh, that there is fuel supply in the country. The problem is the distribution problem. Oh, we have so trucks at sea, it's your flooding, which is part of the distribution problem. We can have an effective system that as soon as these things come, they are decided. Because it's not comforting to tell me that, oh, don't worry, you are hungry, not because there is no food, it's because the kitchen is locked. How long will the kitchen be locked and I'm hungry? So how long would you keep telling Nigerians this? Everything that ought to be done should be done to ensure things work the way they should work. People should not spend man hours at the fuel station to get fuel. The Nigerian system has become such that it is not enough to have money to buy the fuel, as expensive as that is. After getting the money, you still need faith to buy.
All right, Doctor.
I mean,
looking at the fuel scarcity that we have currently in Nigeria and a lot of the states, and then this being mentioned as the major challenge.
To me, I think where I will look at it is from the importation, because the shipment of this product takes a lot of time. By the time the quantity that is available is
exhausted.
Yes. And for the other one that will be coming, that lapse that is there will create scarcity. That's the first aspect I'm looking at. Then, just of recent, is it a few days ago, I was reading the NNPC, whatever, said that the products now have come. So Nigerians should wait, because that is the cause of the scarcity, the availability of the product. That's why I'm still frowning at the government for not allowing the refinery to work. Then secondly, we have depots in barely all the regions and in some states of this country. Now, the worry is that the pipelines have been vandalized. To me, I think we have some bodies that have been given the charge, yes, to put surveillance on these pipelines. What are they doing? The government who has contracted them should find out. Are they working Are they doing what they are supposed to do? If not, there is no excuse for weak distribution. We have the depots, or both private and NPC have their depots. So the products should be channeled, distributed to all these depots. And excluding that, there is also the failure in the aspect which he pointed on the rail transport system. Because I remember in the 80s that when these rail lines were working, most of these products were transported to different zones. So the rail line should be reactivated back, because the government, I don't know what they're doing. It's a system that will ease out a lot of things and reduce the number of trucks that have filled our roads, and that's why our roads are collapsing and everything happening. So the depot, the rail line, and the availability of the products are factors that we need to look at to avoid the weak distribution. So when the product is not there, what do you expect? There will be queues.
Okay, let's take our last story now for a wrap up. We have this one coming from the Amnesty International, criticizing President Bola Tinubu's administration for leaving rural communities in northern Nigeria vulnerable to rampaging gunmen. The organization reported that these criminals have killed hundreds, displaced thousands, and caused significant destruction in states like Zamfara, Katsina, Benue, Sokoto, and Niger. Over 150 villages in Zamfara have been sacked, and more than 200,000 people displaced in Katsina alone. Amnesty International has warned that the government's failure to address the escalating violence is leading to a humanitarian crisis, with lives and livelihoods at severe risk. This story is coming from the Amnesty International and talking about insecurity and the federal government not paying enough attention to northern Nigeria. Would you say that is the case?
Absolutely, absolutely. Not taking away from it. Absolutely. The federal government, successive government, has done little to improve the security in the country, not just in the northern region, all over the place here. If you put your ears to the ground here, you hear cases of kidnaps still going on here. And then look at the case cited. 26 women has been held since February, right? What is their condition? That is traumatizing for the women and for their families. Some of them are probably mothers, maybe of kids. What happens to those children? What is the government? The thing is that we have gotten to the point that some of these things no longer make news, because it seems that, oh, it has become the normal. You know, when the abnormal becomes normal, it's something to worry about. In Zamfara, the other day, farmers were talking about how they pay tax to gangmen to go to farm. At times, some of them are even kidnapped to farm for these people. And we have a government, like I talked about, you know, the state system before. We surrendered our power to the state to give us security. Security is one of the major functions of government. Government should wake up and provide that. That's why we have food insecurity. Physical insecurity leads to food insecurity and so many other things. People can't go to their farm. These women, like this woman that has been held, what do you think is the fate of their family today? Do you think they've been going about their normal business? Absolutely not. So it has affected everything. Health issues has been compounded. So Amnesty International is absolutely correct, and it should be a wake-up call. I wonder why the government has not woken up till now anyway. If this should be the wake-up call, so be it. But it should be a wake-up call that there is more to be done. And this is not the time for anybody from government to tell us that, oh, we are putting in our best, we are working around the clock. No, you are doing your best. If it's not producing result, then that best is not what we want. We will leave no stone unturned. Stop turning the stones and get people secure. So Amnesty International is absolutely correct, and it's a wake-up call to government.
What do we really need to put this to help ourselves, you know, the country with insecurity?
Yeah, the fact is the government should wake up, just like you said. We have the men, the security apparatus that can curb this menace of insecurity. The fact is that most of these security personnel have been politicized. Now the security of the country has also been politicized. So if they take away politics from it and come to the reality, to save the life of the people, the property of the people. The government have that legitimacy to do that. So they need to come up to that. The security men are there. We have enough security. So they need to position them. There is need for intelligence. There is need for, proper review of the security system. If they try this and it doesn't work, there is need to review.
We need foreign machineries to handle this.
No, we don't need foreign machineries. We have the capacity. We have the human resource. We have the fund.
They will be coming in with the technology.
The technology also is at our disposal. It's at our reach. We can employ the CCTV, we can employ the drone, we can employ all that. It's workable. It's possible. All of those regions that have this, they put in those things, security men. Of course, if they want to hire foreign mercenaries, let them come and put those gadgets. And then they have a control system where they monitor the situation. Then in case of any incidents, they send out men to go and checkmate that situation. That's what we need.
All right, thank you so much. We really appreciate your thoughts on the show today. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Ketriku, for your thoughts on the show today. Thank you for coming, and we must thank you for being a part of this. Samuel has been on my team to making this possible. I've also had Silas here with me. And remember to stay connected with us on all of our socials, on Facebook and YouTube at Atlantic Television Network, on Instagram and TikTok at Atlantic TV Network 1, and on X at Atlantic TV Net. Watch us live on our website at www.atlanticnetwork.tv. Always remember that peace and unity are the pathways to progress. I am Enidoye Jackson. Stay with us on ATN.